Hey there, Big Blue Nation. What's happening? Michael Eaves here with you for another edition of BBN Live. And this is a very special edition because we're going back and looking at one of the greatest eras in the history of not just Kentucky basketball, but college basketball in terms of team success and individual players going on to the NBA. And we're going to do a draft, an all draft of the John Calipari era, and find out who can put together the best team. And once those teams are selected, we're going to have you, the fans on social media, pick out your best teams as well and give us an indication of who you think from our select, esteemed list of guests can put together the best team. Of course, I anchor SportsCenter for ESPN, graduated Kentucky back in 1994. Shout out to Hopkins County, where I grew up there in the western part of the state. But speaking of our guests, wow, it'd be hard to find a more star-studded, well-rounded list than what we have for you today. We have Erin Calipari. Of course, you know her from Twitter because she has one of the quickest wits in the history of social media. She is, from what I've been told, John Calipari's favorite child, although he will not say that publicly. But more importantly, she's an assistant professor of pharmacology at Vanderbilt University. Erin, what's happening? Glad to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm definitely not my dad's favorite child. Maybe like top two. I mean, we'll see on a good day, but definitely not number one.
You know what? Maybe you can improve that standing today with your selection of the all-Cal team at the University of Kentucky. We'll see how that goes. Next up is one of my colleagues here at ESPN, Sean Farnham. Sean grew up in Northern California, played college basketball at UCLA, and then once he graduated, he went straight to broadcasting, working for Fox Sports, CBS, and of course now at ESPN. He's been a mainstay in our college basketball coverage over the last several years, from calling SEC games to also appearing on SportsCenter and all of our coverage throughout ESPN during the college basketball season. Sean, what's happening, man?
Not much. I kind of wish I was in Lexington so I could go to, Tony's Steakhouse and have a nice filet with maybe the Brussels sprouts. That would be nice. Or maybe go to Dudley's on Short and have the Brussels sprout salad there because that's to die for. In fact, Coach Cal gave me that invitation the first time I ever went to Lexington. But, hey, this is the closest thing I can feel to Lexington right now, so I'm good with this. We're talking sports. That's a positive.
That is a positive. And you know what, Sean? Friends of mine from Lexington sent me a bag of Grippos the other day, and I felt like I was back home for the first time in a while.
Hey,
Speaking of Lexington,
can I just say, by the way, you look smooth.
Yeah.
You look really smooth in those posts from high school that I've seen you've been putting out on the Instagram lately, my man. You were a stud in high school.
In the late 80s, Sean, the late 80s, there was a lot of fabric and a lot of hair, and I was the beneficiary of both. So I appreciate you saying that. But speaking of Lexington, how about a Lexington native? Of course, you know him from all the roles he's had on television and film throughout the last several years. Also a pretty good musician in his own right as well. Josh Hopkins joining us here on BBN Live. What's up, man?
Hey, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I wish I could be in Lexington too, but really I wish I could be anywhere, but this will have to do for now.
Yeah, live sports has been very few and far between as of late, but we're going to fill some void with that definitely today. And I think there's going to be some pretty good competition among our draft teams today as well. And finally, certainly not least, though, on this list is a UK Hall of Famer, a Dayton, Ohio native, played college basketball, of course, at Kentucky in the late 60s into 1970 for the legendary coach, Adolph Rupp. Mike Pratt is here on BBN Live. Mike, how you doing, man?
Good, gang. Real good. Everybody is looking like they're ready to burst out onto some other scene besides the one they've been in, and it's good to talk sports.
Now, this is really going to be competitive because you've got, Josh, the true fan. He probably watches as many games as everybody, but Sean and Mike are typically working on the games, and Erin's dad is the coach. So we're going to see how all these different relationships
I say unfair advantage to Erin.
Plays out.
Maybe a little.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Now, basically what we're going to do, fans at home, it's a basic 6-round snake drive. We'll go Erin to Sean to Josh to Mike, and then Mike will turn around and select first in the second round, back to Josh, Sean, and Erin. So it's a snake draft that most of you have probably participated in some capacity if you've ever been into fantasy sports. Now, what we are doing for the first 5 selections there, each one of our panelists will pick one player that played for John Calipari at the University of Kentucky. Once we get to the 6th round, they will have a 6-man pick, and that will come from any player in the history of the program. Doesn't have to be just when John Calipari was a coach, but any player all time, and it could be even Mike Pratt if he wanted to pick himself for that 6-man position. That's how it's going to go, and again, it's going to be on social media and get your guys' participation as well. But if you guys are ready, I say we get this thing popping.
Let's do it.
I'm good.
All right, Erin, you are first up. Who are you picking in the all John Calipari BBN Live draft?
All right, I'm going with Anthony Davis.
Ooh, Anthony Davis. Why that selection?
Wow, I mean, he's probably the top one there. I mean, you could probably win games with only him and nobody else on the court. So I figured that was a solid pick if I want to pick up Brad Calipari as a shooting guard later.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was disappointed you didn't go with Brad Calipari at 1 because me holding number 2, I was hoping AD was going to be available for me. I thought family love would come in there.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get yelled at for this later, but, you know, the Caliparis like to win, so Brad just has to step his game up a little bit if he wants to be first pick.
Yeah, Anthony Davis, definitely a winner, of course, leading Kentucky to that championship in 2012, and it was a #1 overall draft pick that year as well. So, Erin, off to a solid start, to say the least. Sean, who's your pick?
I know we talk so much about the guards, and obviously Coach Cal has had a tremendous amount of guard play. I'm going to stay with a big, and this was a guy that I spent a lot of time with in his one season in Lexington, helped lead the team to 38-1. I'm going with Karl-Anthony Towns as my pick here at number 2. I just love the way that he grew during the course of his freshman year. I remember when Coach Cal told me when they played in Missouri in January, he goes, listen, I told him enough with some of these perimeter jump shots. Let's dominate 5 feet and in. And after he dominated 5 feet and in, he became the #1 pick in the NBA draft.
Yeah, such versatility at his position thanks to a pretty nice growth spurt that he had in high school. And again, those skills have also translated to the NBA since he left Kentucky. So Sean Farnham going with another big, another former #1 draft pick, Karl-Anthony Towns, with his selection. All right, Josh, they've gone 2 bigs in front of you. Where are you looking?
Well, I mean, I'm a John Wall guy for sure. I loved him. He was like the coolest player like maybe we've ever had as far as – but if you look at this list, there's a kind of a bigger drop from center than there is. There's some really good point guards left. So from a draft standpoint, I'm going to go with big DeMarcus Boogie Cousins.
DeMarcus Cousins is the first selection by Josh Hopkins. And that's a good point. Like, you're putting together a team by position as well as if you're putting out a starting 5. So it's not just the 5 best players available. You need to put together a squad that people can see go out on the court. So Boogie Cousins is the selection for Josh Hopkins. All right, Mike, they've taken 3 pretty good players. Yeah, Josh, go ahead.
This is weighted towards their actual production at Kentucky, correct?
Yes, only at Kentucky. Anything that happened in the NBA should not be factored in. We're looking at their time at the University of Kentucky.
Okay,
cool.
Good to know.
Good point, Josh. I should have said that earlier, but keeping me on my toes. All right, Mike, they're running out of good bigs for you here. Who are you going to go with?
Well, the game's changed now. They're playing outside in instead of inside out, but I still like the big guys. And Josh stole my man, though. I mean, Sean, Erin, they all got who they would have gotten, but Josh stole my man. But I will go with Bam Adebayo, and here's why.
Okay.
I think we just scratched the surface with Bam. I saw him come on late in the year, and now, of course, we don't count NBA. But if Bam stays in around another year with Cal and his staff, that I think this guy would be just as good as you could get at Kentucky.
If anybody was peaking as they were playing their last games at Kentucky, it was definitely Bam Adebayo. You thought they had a chance to get to that Final Four that year. What a run they made. And, yeah, clearly that athleticism you talk about, Mike, has made its way to the NBA. But a very solid choice to go up against DeMarcus Cousins, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Anthony Davis in our first round. All right, so there you have it, going with the bigs here early on through the first 4 selections. But, Mike, you are now up again through our snake draft. You've got the first pick here in the second round.
Well, you got to fill out your back line or start to fill out your back line. And a combination, somebody might go better with AD, might go better with Cat. But I've got to fill mine in to go with Bam, who's not going to get you a lot of offense, but he can control the paint. So I'm going to go with P.J. Washington. I'm going to go with P.J. based upon how we saw him grow in 2 years and how he developed not only an outside shot, but the ability to score the ball. So I'm going with P.J.
Yeah, very similar to Bam, Mike, in terms of how PJ came along, especially over the last half of his last year at Kentucky. And there were times he literally dominated the offensive end of the floor for Kentucky. So a solid choice, to say the least. All right, Josh, who do you got behind DeMarcus Cousins there on your squad?
Well, we're just going to reunite him with his point guard, John Wall. We're back. I got my man after all. I love
that.
That
kind of fell to you.
Did.
Yeah, right?
Did.
I saw that one coming, actually.
Did not expect that, but I'm very happy to have those two reunited in Lexington.
Of course, DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall were part of the first recruiting class for John Calipari at Kentucky. I was at the Nike Hoop Summit out in Portland not long after John had got the job. And, of course, Boogie and John Wall were both playing out there, and I ran into John at the Nike team store. I'm like, yeah, if you do your work, I think you're going to have a pretty good first year in Lexington. That's exactly what he did, going to the Elite Eight with John Wall and Boogie Cousins. All right, Sean, you're up next here in round two. Who are you going with?
All right, so in round two, again, we're going off of what they did in college. I feel like I've got myself a dynamic big. I want to have the best scorer in the Calipari era, and I'm going to go with Jamal Murray. Murray's my guy. I mean, he averaged 20 points per game. He can separate the floor, add the spacing that I need for Karl-Anthony Towns underneath. I'm going with him.
Yeah, a good shooter, to say the least, to be able to knock down the three ball in the way the game is played today, but also sneaky off the bounce to get to the rim. Pretty good finisher as well. Jamal Murray can fill it up with anybody. So you got a good scoring tandem there so far for you, Sean. Erin, who's going to play alongside Anthony Davis in your squad?
Yeah, so I was looking at my order, which kind of sucked, right? Because I had the first pick, and I was like, okay, I know I can get Anthony Davis, but I figured that there were going to be a lot of people who went in between. So I was thinking about some maybe, solid, consistent players that are going to make shots, can drive to the basket, are going to be able to play with him. And the great news about this is there's a long list of really solid point guards. So I'm going to wait on that. But I'm actually going to go with Devin Booker for shooting guard.
Devin Booker, of course, was on the team that went 38-1 that year, 2015 Final Four. Any other year, any other team, Devin Booker would have been a starter probably as a true freshman, but they had a pretty good lineup of seasoned veterans ahead of him, and he did come off the bench, but every time he came off the bench, he was instant offense for that Kentucky team, and that's exactly what he's going to provide on Erin Calipari's squad alongside Anthony Davis. All right, Erin, so just like that, you get the first pick here in the third round. You mentioned point guards heavy. Is that where you're going next?
No, I'm going to wait on that because I think I'm probably going to take people that other people won't take. But I'm going to go with Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. He's, a solid player. And I think that he's kind of the perfect person to go there with those other two.
Probably one of the more tenacious defenders that John Calipari's ever had since he's been at Lexington. I mean, the kid had a motor that just would not stop, and they wanted him to be a lottery pick as well. So the defense is there, offense is there. Erin's team is coming together pretty solidly. All right, Sean, are you thinking defense with your pick here, number 10?
I'm thinking about all the way around. There's so many. I need help. Can we just pause for a second? I just need help for a second.
Sure.
Jack, my son is going to help me out on this pick. Jack, come on. What do you got? First of all, show him the shirt. Show him the shirt. Yeah, horse with cats.
Okay.
Yep.
Solid.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good call. All right, so here's what we're going. In the third round, Sean Farnham is selecting a man who served up Lonzo Ball every single time they played, De'Aaron Fox. Let's go.
Ooh. De'Aaron Fox. Swipe of the Fox, as he's called on Twitter. In terms of getting down the floor with the ball, one of the fastest players we've seen in college basketball in the last several years, definitely making a name for himself there in the NBA now in Sacramento. But a solid selection there. De'Aaron Fox be able to control the tempo in the backcourt for Sean Farnham's squad. All right, Josh, you're up next. It's starting to get thinner and thinner with some of these great players that John Calipari's had over the last decade or so.
Yeah, and as we all know, with this team that I've got, the one thing they lacked was a little shooting, and it came to haunt us a little bit. So I've got to go with a shooter here, and I'm looking at the bucket, maybe Monk, maybe Quickly, but I think I'm going to go with Monk.
Malik Monk is your selection to fill it up from the outside. Of course, he had some tremendous scoring games when he was there at Lexington. Guy can fill it up from all over the court. Of course, you remember that game against North Carolina there in Las Vegas that year. Tremendous score. And, yeah, you want to balance out a squad with a dude that can do it from inside or outside, off the dribble or off the catch. Malik Monk is definitely a guy that can fill it up. All right, Mike, you're up next. You got a couple bigs on your squad right now. You might need to fill it out with some backcourt mates.
I do, and everybody's jumped on the guard wagon and left me kind of picked a lot of people that I might have wanted, but there's a couple left that I would like to have run the show. And SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is my pick for the point. Really good defender, played the passing lanes, was a pretty good on-ball defender, but really played the passing lanes and understood how the game was developing, saw it very well, and reacted. I'm going to go with SGA.
You know, Mike, you mentioned playing to the passing lanes. I thought Rajon Rondo may be one of the best players in the history of Kentucky basketball, at least in modern era, to be able to play passing lanes even off his primary responsibility. But, yeah, SGA could do it as well. And then once he got into those passing lanes and started the fast break, usually good things are going to happen. So a solid choice there from SGA. Played defense, but also put the ball in the hoop when you need someone to score. All right, Mike, your turnaround and picking right around again. Who's going to play with Bam, PJ, and SGA?
Well, you know, there's a lot to choose from here, guys. You want some guys that could get you buckets. You got Hero and, of course, Bledsoe, a terrific defender. Monk could get you buckets. But a guy that kind of falls through the cracks, I think, Brandon Knight. Kentucky doesn't get by the first-round game against Princeton as when he was a freshman. If he doesn't make a very difficult layup, that if he doesn't do it a certain way, kind of scoops it under the defender, Kentucky goes home. And from that point forward, they had momentum and marched on to the Final Four. So I'm going with Brandon Knight.
Solid selection there. Brandon Knight was seemingly, the moment was never too big for him. And oftentimes in tense situations, other players sometimes kind of fall to the wayside, Mike, as you've seen through the years. Brandon Knight, if anything, would often step up in those situations. And that's a good example you're talking about, that Princeton game. What a move by Brandon Knight to get Kentucky continuing rolling that year in the NCAA tournament. Wow, Mike's team is starting to shape up here, and I see where he's going in terms of chemistry and positioning. He's putting these guys together. Josh, you're up next. You've got some pretty good tandem there. Malik Monk can score anywhere on the floor. Who's your next pick here in the fourth round?
At this point, I didn't know this guy would be here, and I don't know exactly how well he would pair with DeMarcus, but I cannot pass up the double-double machine that is Julius Randle here.
Good pick.
Too good, too talented. Was rebound savvy, especially getting offensive rebounds and putting it back up to score. Julius, I think he does sort of fall by the wayside a little bit, Josh, because of some of the other players that have played in and around him. But in terms of one guy you want on your squad in a tough situation, I'll take Julius Randle any day of the week. No doubt about that. All right, Sean,
yes,
you're up next. He took a pretty good one from you. And Julius Randle, who's going to play with Cat, Jamal, and De'Aaron?
Listen, this is a game about guards. You got to have guards. If there's one thing I've learned from being around this program is when you have guards that can go, man, good things happen to you, especially in today's college basketball. And I go to a guy that played this year that I really think because of how well he was playing, that the Kentucky Wildcats probably would have, at the very least, been in Atlanta and had a legitimate chance to win a national championship. And I'm going with Immanuel Quickley.
Ooh, Immanuel Quickley. And I agree with you in terms of how he was playing. Sean had a chance to go too deep in the NCAA tournament, maybe get to the Final Four. Oftentimes you see players in college, and Sean, Mike, you know this as well as anybody, considering how long you've been around the game, and Aaron, Josh, you've seen this as well, is like you look for the guys who sort of find their identity during the course of the season if they didn't already know what it was, and then what they do with it going forward. Emmanuel Quigley is definitely one of those guys who did that this past season for John Calipari in Kentucky, and it's a shame that we didn't get to see a little bit more of what that was going to transpire into. All right, Erin, Quigley's off the board. You've got a pretty good defender. You got a shooter. Who else is going to play? You need a point guard. Where are you at, Erin?
I'm going for point guard now. So here is my thought. I've watched a lot of teams over the years, not just to Kentucky. We're talking UMass and Memphis, and some of the best teams have really been players who are just solid players that are actually excellent in their own right, but they're willing to kind of sacrifice and, play whatever position for the team. So one of my favorite point guards at the University of Kentucky, who actually played shooting guard for most of the year, was actually Eric Bledsoe. So I'm going to go with Eric Bledsoe. So he is exceptional. Had John Wall not been on that team, I think you would have seen a lot more from him in the point guard position. He can hit shots. Yeah. He's an excellent team player. He can defend. He does it all. And so that's my point guard choice.
Yeah, Eric was definitely going to be the point guard of that squad if John Wall didn't sign and made the switch to shooting guard, which he'd never really played throughout his basketball career, but still a vital part of that team that year that went to the Elite Eight in John's first year. And clearly, since he's been to the NBA, you saw the point guard potential that he has, especially as a defender. I used to do Clipper games in LA when he first came into the NBA, and the way he defended, and also he would sneak dunk on some taller guys all the time. Eric Bledsoe, one of the best athletes for sure that the University of Kentucky's ever produced, especially since John Calipari has been the coach there. All right, so we're through the first 4 rounds here, and Erin's going to lead us off again here in the 5th round. But before we do that, because this will be the last selection you guys have to take under the John Calipari era, because the 6th round you can pick any player throughout the history of Kentucky basketball. Sean, is there anybody on another team so far that you thought you would have on yours at this point?
No, actually, this has gone to as scripted. Like I literally were going through it, trying to figure out all these things. There's so many great names out there, and I mean, there's this final round. Like people are gonna look and say, "Wait, hold on, this person got picked in the 5th round," and they're still one of the best players we've seen in college basketball in the last 10 years. That's how plentiful this list is. So it's no slight that you haven't got drafted yet, but this has gone as scripted for me. I'm very happy with where I'm at right now.
Josh, if there was one player on someone else's team that you would want right now, who would it be?
Well, I mean, if you're not going to say Anthony Davis or whatnot, but it would have been nice to throw like a PJ Washington on my team the way it sets up now, because I need a guy that can shoot a little bit, space it out, play a 3-4. He'd have been nice to have. I also was looking forward to try and get Eric Bledsoe reunited with my squad too.
Oh, you could put the 2010 team back together. I see what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and if I'd gotten that, I think for my all-time pick, I would have taken what's the guy's name that almost came back that year? What am I thinking of?
Team?
He had 50 against Tennessee.
Jody Meeks.
Jody Meeks.
Jody Meeks.
Jody
yeah,
Meeks.
Jody Meeks. Yeah. Because they always say if he'd come back for that season, we'd have definitely won that game in that season. I think I'd take Jody Meeks. But
they definitely got to hit some threes in that game against West Virginia. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Meeks could do that, and Josh is right.
Yes, he could.
Do that
from anywhere. He loved that left corner. That's for sure. All right, so we got the 5th round coming, and of course the 6th round. There'll be the 6th man. You can pick a player from any era, not just under John Calipari. All right, Erin, you are leading us off again here in the 5th round. Who's your final selection from the John Calipari era?
Yeah, so I'm actually surprised no one took him yet. So I want someone who's going to hit the game-winning buzzer beater, in the NCAA tournament, championship game. So I'm going with Aaron Harrison.
Aaron Harrison, Big Shot Aaron. I wish we had a better nickname for Aaron in terms of what he did during that run to the Final Four, because he was ice water in his veins. He was never scared of an opportunity. And I remember I was at the Emmys in New York when he hit that game-winning 3 I forget which game it was, and I was sitting there screaming inside my head because I couldn't say it out loud. I was watching on my phone. A tremendous big-time player is Aaron Harrison. So Erin Calipari has finished out her squad of the John Calipari players at Kentucky. She still has one more selection all time, which can come from a John Calipari team, but she can also take it to any coach there at Kentucky. Sean, you're up next. Who you got?
All right, so I love my team. I love my team so much because we've got shooters. I've got a point guard that is so disruptive at both ends of the floor. I've got an uberly talented Karl-Anthony Towns. I need another defensive presence, though. And I need somebody that can protect the basket, take some of that pressure of rebounding off of Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm going with Willie Cauley-Stein. You're talking about an SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, just his impact on the floor, and he's a guy that you don't need to run plays for and can still be productive at the offensive end, but yet defensively can just protect the basket so well.
Especially considering the way the game is played now, Sean, you're talking about just the ability to be able to defend the rim.
Picture. Remember that dunk? Remember that dunk? When he went up in Florida down in Gainesville and just, brought the hammer down? That's my guy. I got him in the 5th round. I'm pleased. I'm very pleased right now.
Yeah, that's a good squad to say the least. But in order for Willie Cauley-Stein to be able to defend, against the rim and things of that nature, but he can also switch out on the high screen rolling guard, anybody coming off of her from a point guard to a big. So the versatility that Willie Cauley-Stein brought to the team was always invaluable. All right, Josh, you're up next. Fill out your squad from the John Calipari era.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going I have a need here. So I can't believe that Tyler Ulis is still out there, but he doesn't really work with my squad here.
Right.
I would like to maybe reunite Darius Miller with this group because he was a bucket. He was a guy that could go get you a bucket and shot it pretty well. But I'm going to fill a need here with some length and a guy that can stick it in the basket from 3 because I need shooting. I'm going to go with Kevin Knox.
Kevin Knox. Versatility at his size. Loves the baseline jumper in the elbow, but could also step out and knock down some threes as well. So adding a little more scoring punch to Josh Hopkins' squad. And it's Kevin Knox at the 19th overall selection. All right, Mike, you're up next. Fill out your squad from Calipari's teams.
I've got good balance. I've got some guards, 2 guards that can play 1 and 2. They both can score and really good defenders. And, of course, Bam's going to work the boards. He's going to play really hard. And PJ is going to stretch it a little bit, stretch that defense. He can play inside. He can do both. So what I think I need on my team is a workhorse-type guy that'll play defense, rebound, block some shots, and hit the open shot to balance my team out. So I got it down to 2 guys, Darius Miller and Patrick Patterson. And I'm going to go with Darius Miller as my other forward. Unless I can have both of them.
yeah, most coaches love to have both of them on the squad. But Darius Miller, a pretty good addition to that team right there. Of course, a Kentucky native as well. And, as star-studded as that 2012 team that won the championship, I always thought the heart and soul really came from Darius Miller in terms of what he brought to that team, especially coming off the bench and adding some senior leadership and some stability at key moments in games. What a player he was for that time and period at Kentucky. All right, so there we have it. The first 5 rounds are in, and these are the selections for Aaron, Sean, Josh, and Mike of all the players that have played during John Calipari. If they had to put together a starting 5, these are the selections. Aaron, of the other teams you see so far, which one are you most envious of?
They all look pretty good. I mean, Josh's looks great. I love DeMarcus and John Wall. Those are like 2 of my all-time favorites just as people. This is like, if you guys can see them, just picking the people I like the best. I'm like, they're all good. Like, they're fun.
Yeah, they're all good. All right, Mike, besides your team that you would clearly love to coach, which one of those other teams would you like to send out on the floor and have a go at another squad?
I kind of like Sean's team. They got Cat, and then they got guys who can get buckets, and I tried to put my team together with guys who could get buckets. I like shooters. I like scorers. The game is outside in now, and Quickly was terrific this year. And man, can Fox play that point and defensively, and Murray can shoot it. I kind of like Sean Steen.
Yeah, that'd be a fun team to watch for sure, getting up and down the court and seeing how many points they can put on the scoreboard. All right, so now for the final round, the 6th round, you have an opportunity to pick not just a player that played for John Calipari, but a player that played for any coach at Kentucky. Of course, Adolph Rupp, Joby Hall, late great Eddie Sutton, who just passed away recently, Rick Pitino, Tubby Smith, or you can even bring it back to John Calipari if you would want to pick any player to go with your squad of the best players from the John Calipari era. Mike, you're up first. Who's your selection? I think I have a guess on who this is.
Yeah, you're probably right. Unfortunately or fortunately, it depends on how you look at it. I've had the pleasure to watch a lot of players play at Kentucky, played with and watched a bunch. And boy, there's been some terrific players that played for Cal and the guys that played before. But there are a couple guys that I played with college and in the pros that I think are special for certain reasons. And one is Louis Dampier and the other is Dan Issel. And I'm going to have to go with Iss. You know, we roomed together at one time and we played together. The guy can play the 4 and the 5. They didn't have the 3-pointer back then, but he could shoot that. And he's a guy that can get you buckets. And he could play, if Bam got in foul trouble, he could play in there, or PJ. And this guy was a tremendous basketball player. I like scorers.
Yeah, the all-time leading scorer in the history of Kentucky men's basketball. So Dan Issel would be a solid choice to be the 6th man on this squad. All right, Josh, who do you got? A lot of fan favorites still out there in terms of players that have worn the blue and white of Kentucky.
Yeah, my all-time guys out there, I'm a huge Rex Chapman guy. That's my guy. But I can't pick him here because I got to fill this squad out, and I just can't overlook Jamal Mashburn. He can shoot it. He can do everything. He can rebound, shoot. Great ball handler for his size. My team could really use Jamal Mashburn.
Yeah, Jamal and I were freshmen the same year at Kentucky, and we hung out quite a bit over those first few years. Well, he was only there for 3 years, but first few years in particular, before he got really famous and couldn't go anywhere, we used to hang out quite a bit. And I've said for a long time that he may be the most important player in the Kentucky basketball program throughout its history because of what he represented when Rick Pitino took over, coming off probation, and how it took that team to the next level quicker than maybe a lot of people thought it would have happened otherwise, because he got Jamal Mashburn and come from New York to Lexington and ball out for the Cats. What a tremendous player Mash was. And again, talking about modern day basketball, he would eat up defenses because he could post you up or shoot the 3 and handle it like a guard. So a really good selection there by Josh for his all-time selection. All right, Sean, you're up next. Who are you going with?
I'm so thrilled because the guy I wanted from jump is still available here. And you have to go back in the laurels of history at Kentucky, and you think about guys. I want a guy, first of all, that represents a national championship team. You had to win a national championship to get my vote here. And a lot of talk about cool nicknames. This guy has one. But more importantly, he dropped 41 points in the national championship game against Duke. His team went 30-2. I'm going with Jack the Goose Givens.
Yeah, a record that still stands in terms of national championship scoring output back there in 1978.
Biggest
all-timer to say the least.
Brightest.
Right, and that tells you so much about the type of player that Jack Givens was. But for him to come through that program after a high school career and then lead them to their first championship since Adolph Rupp was a tremendous honor for him specifically, but also a huge moment for that program. And, yeah, I'd love to see Jack coming off screens near the top of the key in today's modern game and see how he could light it up. So Jack Givens, the all-time selection for Sean Farnham. So we come back to where we started. Erin Calipari. She has the last selection here in this draft, and so many different places you could go to, Erin, from the all-time players to even someone that played for your dad, or even someone that even grew up in the same household, Erin. Not too much pressure on this last selection, but who's your pick?
Yeah, so I was like waffling back and forth between this person and Jamal Mashburn, but now that Jamal Mashburn's gone, I guess this is an easier decision. So this guy, I think John Calipari did a maybe not great job of coaching him. He really kind of underutilized him, and I think we've really seen him take off since he actually left Kentucky. So I'm going to go with Brad Calipari, one of the top 3-point shooters in the country. Could have maybe been used. I don't know. John Calipari had some good players, bad players, but that one I think he kind of messed up on a bit. But I'll take him.
Erin takes her brother, Brad Calipari.
I love that.
I know this. This is really going to go over well with Mom. I know which team Mom would now select in terms of her favorite.
Yep.
That one is good. So there we have it, folks. These are the all John Calipari teams chosen by Erin, Sean, Josh, and Mike. Take a look. I mean, and just think of the players that are not chosen here that were part of great teams that went on to the NBA because of what they did in college. I mean, so many players you could add to these squads. And I'm looking at them, man. This is a tough list. This is a tough list. But if I had to choose who I think would probably win a round-robin tournament between these four teams, I think I'm going with Josh. I think I'm going with Boogie, John Wall, Malik Monk, Julius Randle, Kevin Knox, and Jamal Mashburn. Wow. You could put that squad up against anybody and would have a pretty good chance of coming out on top. Now, Josh, my vote doesn't really count that much because we're going to put it on social media, and we're going to see what the rest of BBN thinks about it. But that's a pretty strong team. How confident are you in your squad compared to the other three you see in front of you?
There's no losers here. Everybody did such a good job. But I don't know. It'd be hard to stop Sean's team from scoring. That is a scoring group. They scare me a little bit, but everybody's stacked.
I mean, you guys think about the list of players that Tyler Hero's not anywhere to be found on this screen right now. I mean, and he's just one of the most prolific shooters we've seen in college basketball. Guys like Alex Poitras, his versatility, and had he not gotten hurt in the year where they were making that undefeated run, I think he would have matched up really nicely with Wisconsin, and I think Kentucky probably would come out on top that year. There's so many great players that aren't on this list, and Tyler Ulis is another guy that was mentioned earlier who's just the epitome of a winner and just did whatever it took to help the team win. Just so many great players that weren't even drafted. That's how crazy the talent pool is.
Mike, as you look at these squads right here, if you had to pick one to make a run to the Final Four, which one would you pick?
Well, that's boy, I tell you what, they all are capable of making that run. As Josh said, they're so daggone talented that they're all capable. But anytime you have Anthony Davis, you have a chance to win a national championship, no matter where your draw is. And Booker could fill it up. So Bledsoe, he was one of my favorites, Erin, too, when he played. So I don't like Erin's team better than my team, but I like her team.
All right, Erin, so here's the question. Which team would your dad pick?
Probably my team, because he was yelling at me about some of these guys earlier. I know who his favorites are because their pictures are all over our house. We don't have family photos. We just have pictures of the players that we like the best up in our family areas. So I've been staring at some of these guys, attention from that.
So extended family is what the pictures you have on the wall there at John Calipari's house in Lexington. Again, great job, guys. Again, as Mike said, any one of these teams, any coach in America would love to have on the floor the chance to win a national championship. But this just speaks volumes for not just the history of Kentucky basketball, but what John Calipari has been able to amass over the last 10 years in terms of overall talent, which has led to a lot of team success and more success than pretty much any team in college basketball since John has been in Lexington. So, guys, really appreciate the time. Erin, Sean, Josh, Mike, great seeing you guys. Stay safe as we hopefully get to another college basketball season next year and Kentucky can try to bring home another championship with John Calipari as the head coach. I'm Michael Eaves. Big Blue Nation, always good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us. And don't forget, go to social media and you can choose who you believe of these teams is the best team to represent Kentucky in the John Calipari era. Thanks for hanging out with us here on BBN Live.